Okay.
I'm ready. Hello, everyone. I'm Derek Wright, and I'm here today with another live stream. Today, we're going to be talking about some horns made by Conn. Now, let's just clear the air here. I know that Conn's reputation has not been, the best over the past couple of decades. People complain about quality issues, especially band directors buying them in bulk. And there are people who, when they come into the shop or they're at a show and they're looking at horns and I mention, oh, we have, you know, a Conn 10D and a Conn 11D here. They won't even try them. They'll just tell me, hey, I'm not really interested in Conn. In fact, to be honest, I expect this particular live stream to have lower views than average because there aren't as many people interested in Conns. But over the past 2-3 years, Conn has come out with a lot of improvements on their instruments. There's the Conn 8D, of which they remade the mandrels and basically gave the horn, put the horn back to the original specs, which had drifted over the years. And that one plays well. And then they have the new 10D and 11D, which also play well. Now, I mentioned this likely in my last video about the Conn 10D and the Conn 11D, but I really disagree with the fact that they decided to call this the 10D and the 11D. These are completely different horns than the previous 10D and 11D models, but by keeping the same name, people will think, well, they're just upgraded versions of those old horns. And these horns, they play much, much, much better than those old ones. In fact, I really like the sound that I get out of them. And you can tell me in the comments, which are open, whether you like the sound as well. I started off the stream by playing the Conn 10D, and the second horn was the Conn 11D. Now, I'll play a few more excerpts, but I just have one complaint I need to lay down right now. I couldn't figure out how to sit these horns in B flat, and I usually play standing in B flat. Looking at the mechanism, I can tell there is a way to stand it in B flat, but no one here at the shop knew how to do it. There were no instructions on the website, and just couldn't figure it out in time for this stream. So these horns are standing in F, and I'm not used to playing standing in F. So that is my excuse for any notes that I missed playing Mozart at the beginning. And that is true. I thought I could get through, like I can play standing in F for a little bit of Mozart 3, and you get through it a little bit and your brain just reverts back to what you're used to. But all that aside, again, I think the sound of these horns are great, and the price is very good as well. These horns are still in the $6,000 price range. Because of the tariffs that have taken place over the last few months, these horns are now downright affordable. When other horns are starting in the 7,000s and going into 8, 9s, 10s, 11s, 12s. If you're looking for a quote affordable horn, I think these two Conns should be near, if not at the top of your lists. They are made in Eastlake, Ohio, so they are made in the USA, tariff-free. Let's talk about the differences between the Conn 10D and the 11D. So the Conn 10D is made all of yellow brass, so that means yellow brass lead pipe, yellow brass slide and slide tubes. Unlike some other custom horns that are fully yellow brass, the bracing on this horn is still nickel silver. And you also have nickel silver valve casings, which frankly I think is a good idea, because making your valve casings out of anything but nickel silver or bronze, in my opinion, just leads to premature wear. Aside from being made out of yellow brass, the Conn 10D has a lead pipe that is soldered on to the bell tail here. So this part is not braced off, it's soldered directly onto the bell tail. And from our experiments in the shop, I can tell you that that makes a big difference. That one change makes a big difference in how a horn feels. Soldering the lead pipe to the horn will make it won't feel as free blowing. It'll feel a little more resistant, but what you get out of the sound, it gives you a nice, more compact, complex sound than not soldering it on. But if you like the more free feel, you have the Conn 11D. The Conn 11D, this lead pipe is braced off. It has a nickel silver lead pipe and nickel silver slide tubes and slide legs. Now, the advantage of having nickel silver slide tubes and slide legs, aside from the difference in sound that it makes, and it does make a difference in sound, is that nickel silver is a harder metal than yellow brass. So in general, you want the places that could experience wear, such as slides that you are adjusting on a regular basis, to be made out of nickel silver, because that will be a bit more hard wearing. So let me check, see if there are any comments, and we'll continue talking about the differences in the horns. So I know, the initial question is, well, these horns are cheaper, especially since they're not subject to the tariffs. You might be thinking, well, I'll just wait until, the tariffs go away and maybe prices will come back to normal. In all the negotiations and things that are happening, there isn't really talk of any of the tariffs that were implemented in the spring going away. So of course, I cannot predict the future, but I would not bet on the prices of imported horns going down ever. It looks right now the best that we can hope for is that they don't continue to go up. As you know, there is the threat of more tariffs happening at the beginning of August. So if you want one of those other imported horns, now is the time to buy, because it may just get worse. But you may be thinking to yourself, well, okay, well, I just need to save up and get one of those horns because, I don't want to get, a Conn, especially now that it's the affordable option. But I really have very few complaints about this horn. My complaints about it, aside from the fact that I couldn't figure out how to stand it in B flat, the valve action, which I complained about in my last video, has been improved quite a bit. They've changed the springs up, they've changed the geometry of the mechanism a bit, so that, my previous complaints about the keys feeling stiff, it is no longer a thing. They feel fine. Now I will say they don't feel like a Meinl-Schmidt valve section on an $11,000 horn, but this is also not an $11,000 horn. And their new 3D printed levers are growing on me. So these levers, and this is the only company I know that's doing this, they're using 3D printed metal to make these. And what it does is it gives the levers a nice texture. I doubt you can see it on camera, but if you were seeing this in person, you would clearly see a texture on these keys. And they actually feel pretty nice to the fingers. Kind of a little bit of extra friction to keep things in place and not sliding around. And then the build quality of these horns. Now, I don't see all of the complaints that Conn gets. So, I can only say build quality issues that, the build quality issues that we see in the shop and the build quality issues that we see, from instruments that we sell that, may come back. And we have not, since they've come out with these new models and they've improved the instruments, we haven't seen many complaints about the horns or many concerns about the build quality. So I don't really think that's much of an issue. And Conn warranties these horns as well. So even if there is an issue, it can be taken care of. So all that to say, like if you're looking for a horn and you need something in the $6,000 range or under, I see very few reasons why you shouldn't consider this horn. In addition, it comes with a very nice case. And I forgot to bring the case up on stage with me because I really should show it to you. It's a really nice case. It's well put together. It's not cheap. I think I'm confident in saying it's the best OEM case available. Even though like Yamaha has also changed their cases and made it better than the big suitcase that they've had in the past, the Conn cases are just really excellent. So in addition to the horn, you get a top tier case along with it. And the case is fully within airline specs, can hold mutes, can hold sheet music, like fully a good case. Next time I do a stream, I will stop my computer from going to sleep. Okay, so we have one comment here. Good afternoon. You might cover this at some point, but are the ergonomics or the lead pipes still weird in the grip, or have they fixed it? I tried the 11D at TMEA and TBA and liked it, except that. Yes, they have fixed that. In fact, that batch of horns we sent back to the factory. So it was just, we felt it was weird too. But no, they have fixed that. The lead pipe is in the proper place. Your handstand's in the proper place. So that's not an issue anymore. Okay, we have another comment here. Thanks for doing this comparison. Which of these sounds closer to the sound becoming more dominant in US orchestras in recent years? Please feel free to elaborate. The Conn 10D. And I have to insert my opinion here. The Conn 10D is also my favorite of the two horns as well. The Conn 10D just gets a more colorful, more lively sound. One advantage of the Conn 10D that you don't see on other production, I don't want to say mass produced because no French horn is really mass produced. They are in some way handmade. There's no assembly line with robots putting together French horns anywhere in the world. But compared to other factory horns versus workshop horns is that the 10D comes with a yellow brass lead pipe. Now you don't see many factory horns with the yellow brass lead pipe because yellow brass has one pretty big flaw actually. And that's yellow brass is susceptible to red rot. And having your lead pipe made out of yellow brass, which gets exposed to all of the acids and stuff in your saliva. I know we like to say that we dump water out of the horns, but in reality, there's some saliva in there too. It makes the lead pipe more susceptible to red rot. So if you look at like old Carl Geyers or old custom horns that have yellow brass lead pipes, at some point they tend to develop red rot, and so they have a shorter lifespan. So you see production horns generally having lead pipes made out of nickel, silver, or gold brass, two metals that don't red rot. Now, why am I saying this is an advantage? I just told you why they rot. It's that a yellow brass lead pipe does get a very unique sound to it. And you'll find when you look at like the, say the prestige makers, like the horns that are 20,000, 25,000, the ones that you have to wait on a list for 4 to 5 years to get, you'll find yellow brass very prominent among those lead pipes. And that's because yellow brass has a very nice, unique sound. So if you want to make a horns uncompromising in sound, yellow brass is a very good option. I'm not saying By the way, I'm not saying that using nickel, silver, or gold brass is compromising the sound at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. I'm just saying that yellow brass does offer a unique timbre to the sound that gold brass and nickel silver don't. Now, Conn has made this horn with a yellow brass lead pipe and these yellow brass slides. And I think compared to the Conn 11D, the sound ends up being a bit more compact, a bit more colorful, and a bit more of a projecting color. So I would think this horn would probably fit in more in American orchestras than the Conn 11D would. That being said, a lot of it's personal preference. Because if you come in and you try the 11D and the 10D, really you may not like the way the 10D blows. Like I said, soldering the lead pipe onto the bell tail here does make the horn a little bit more resistant. And you may just really want the more free-blowing quality of the Conn 11D. And as you can tell at the beginning of the live stream, it's not like the sound in the horns, they're different, but it's not like one is clearly better than the other in an objective sense. They both have a nice, rich tone. And I guess what I was saying, I don't like the fact that they changed the name, that they didn't change the name of this horn. The old 10D and the old 11D, I just didn't like. I didn't like those horns at all. I didn't think they got a really good sound. I thought that they tended to be a little stuffy and hard to play. Yeah, I was just not a big fan of those horns. And these new horns completely changes that. Like, I fully like the sound of these horns. You know, if I had to take this Conn 10D into an orchestra, you know, for whatever reason, I would feel fully comfortable doing that, and comfortable that I would match sound and intonation and be able to, you know, play the services just fine with no issues whatsoever. Let me see, no more messages on oh, okay. Almost forgot. So someone has brought up the case. So this is a nice compact case. You can see the quilted pattern here. It's faux leather, it's not real leather. But as anyone who's been in a modern car these days, you'll know most cars now use faux leather as well, and it feels, you know, just as nice as real leather in most circumstances. I also love how we call vinyl faux leather. It brings up an image of vinyl seats in the 70s and 80s to those of us who are older. But in this case, you have room for 2 mutes here. So you can put 2 mutes here, horn, bell right on top. Those of you who are familiar with Marcus Bonnet cases, the way the case is laid out is very similar to a Marcus Bonnet. So you also have extra pockets here for accessories. And again, it all comes in a pocket for music or a tablet here at the back. And it's all in a pretty compact shape that will fit in the sizer in the airport just fine. So you know you can get it on the plane with you. And I really, really applaud their decision to make this come with a high quality case. They didn't have to do that. Most other manufacturers, when it comes to a case that is being included with the horn, the case just has to check the box of, is it a case? Yes, it is a case. We can write down for school bids and stuff like that that this horn comes with case and mouthpiece, which is also why you shouldn't use the mouthpiece that comes with the horns. Because a lot of times they're just checking the box like, okay, this comes with case, this comes with mouthpiece. But no, Conn went the extra mile and they gave, you know, they included a really, really nice case that frankly, I think this case is worth buying separately, you know, even if you don't have a Conn and you just like the case. I would fully recommend it. And you know, I've seen these now, they've been out for a little bit, and seen them after a year or two of use, and they are holding up. So there's no, you know, issues of it looking like a really nice case and it just falling apart in 6 months, because in reality it's, you know, just cheap. But that has not been the case. Pun not intended. Let me check one last time for missed the start. Oops. No dents. Missed the start. Do they come in different size bell flares? As far as I understand, the bells on these two horns are exactly the same. That's another big difference between the old 10D and the old 11D. The old 10D had a medium-sized bell. In the old 11D had a medium-large size bell. As much as you can use the terms medium and medium-large, because medium compared to what? Medium-large compared to what? It's all objective. But these two horns, the bell size does not change. And if I have to apply medium or medium-large to it, it's more on the side of medium-large, but it's not using any of the tapers from the old horn. So you can't say, well, this has the old 10D tapers or this has the old 11D tapers. The tapers are completely different, but they are the same between both horns. Okay. With the mouth, here's another one. With the mouthpieces I use on my pre-leather Elkhart 8D be compatible with these horns, or would you suggest other options? I would suggest other options. Now, I know one way that Conn markets these horns is they say like it's a Geyer style horn for people who like 8Ds. And while I will say there is a certain Conn-ness about it, for lack of a better term, it's a totally different horn. It's a large nickel silver CRISPR style horn. These are much smaller yellow brass Geyer style horns. And because of that, I find that those larger nickel silver CRISPR style horns tend to do better with mouthpieces that are a bit larger in bore and just a bit deeper. At least historically, if you look back at the era when like the Conn 8D was king and was the horn being used by most professionals in the country, they were using mouthpieces with like number 12 bores, number 10 bores, number 8 bores with the horns and slightly deeper mouthpieces. Now you don't have to go all the way to like the James Chambers mouthpiece, for a big nickel silver style horn, like super deep C cup with a 1 bore. Looks like the mouthpiece they forgot to drill a bore, and the mouthpiece cut just continued. And with a mouthpiece rim that just hurts. And I know that for a fact because in high school I played a Giardinelli C1 for some reason, because it was the only mouthpiece around. And I still have nightmares. You can imagine with these thick lips on a tiny, tiny mouthpiece with a super thin rim. But with a Geyer style horn, I tend to believe that 12 is the largest bore that you should go with. And they do better with like 14 bore, 16 bore, 17 bore, slightly shallower mouthpieces. This is where like the Laskys come in. It's probably the popularity of the Laskys that have a medium cup and a 14 bore and more of a bowl-shaped cup versus the V-shaped cups of the past. All that being said, though, there are exceptions to everything, so you don't need to comment saying, well, I play a Conn 8D and a Houghton H1 mouthpiece and it's just fine. Like, yeah, there is no hard and fast rule about which mouthpieces go with which horns. I'm just talking in generalities here. With Geyer style horns, the fact that I find that Geyer style horns get worse the more air you dump into it. So using a mouthpiece with a large bore that allows you to dump more air into the horn doesn't do the horn any favors. A mouthpiece with a smaller bore that also helps, just control the amount of air and energy being put into the horn tends to help out and do better and encourages you to play with the horn and play with more ease. Not that you don't play a Conn 10D with more ease, but a Conn 10D just takes a different kind of blow. As I was reminded of when I played the Yamaha 872 in my last live stream, in case you missed that. How do they compare to the HLB 190 from the 1980s? I'm not really sure what that is, to be honest with you. It's just not something that's not something I've run into, so I can't really do a comparison about it. But other than that, that looks to be the end of the questions. Thank you once again for joining me. I will be doing another live stream on Friday, so you can tune in then. And then I'm going on vacation for a week. But then I'll be back again twice weekly with these live streams. Thank you, everybody. Goodbye.